Last Sunday, I attended a birthday celebration in honor of my son's birthday. And while we were gathered around the table having dinner, an individual said, "I am so tired of this war. It needs to be over already." Obviously referring to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I felt her words ever so deeply in my heart. And as I reflected and took a deep breath, I replied, "If you are tired, could you even begin to imagine how the Ukrainians are feeling?" I cannot begin to imagine what the Ukrainians are experiencing. I can't imagine the level of fatigue, of horror, of heartache, of sadness, of anger, of hopelessness the people of Ukraine are experiencing as their loved ones are murdered, as their homeland is destroyed. And although I may not know what it is like to be in the experience that they are currently in, my heart aches. And I am deeply saddened as I bear witness to such atrocity, such violence and cruelty. And I think many of you can relate to that, can understand that, even though we are not in Ukraine. And another individual gathered around the table last Sunday said, "I just don't watch the news." And my friends, I am not here or am interested in having a debate whether individuals should watch the news or not. That is a personal choice, and I honor and I respect it. But I would like to have you ponder this. Do the individuals who not read, do those individuals who do not look at images or read stories about the atrocities of violence or the warring that is going on in the world, are they spared of the vibration, frequency, the energy of the violence that ripples throughout the universe, that is imprinted on the souls of humanity? And if you believe in the law of oneness, the answer to that question would be a resounding no. You see, what is in one is in the whole. What is in the whole is in the one. We profess oneness, right? We know it is powerful when we walk into the room and there's beautiful music playing with somebody who is centered from their heart. We feel that ripple within us, right? And so according to the law of oneness, everything is connected to everything else in the universe. All of it is energy, and our energy is an extension of source energy. Everything we do, say, think, and believe affects everything and everyone in the universe around us. We are microcosms of the macrocosm. So, yes, we are not spared of the vibration and energy in violence and the war in all its forms. And the good news is we are also not spared from the energy and the vibration of love, of kindness, of joy, of generosity that is rippled by one person, by many people into the field. as we know what is in one is in the whole, what is in the whole is in the one. And as we reflect, today is Palm Sunday, and that is observed by many Christian faith traditions. It is the beginning of the Holy Week. It is the week before Easter. And although the circumstances of what is occurring in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine, the conflict that is being waged, it has the similar narrative of what happened centuries ago when Jesus rode on that donkey into Jerusalem the week before he was crucified. And that theme is a centuries old theme of good versus evil, light versus dark, oneness versus separation, all in different ways, kind of reflecting on the same thing. And the metaphysical meaning of good means not as we define it as humans, I like this, I don't like this. Good refers to being in alignment and living from our divinity, from our Christ nature, from our Buddha nature, from our highest expression of love that we are possible and able to express, from that place of kindness and generosity, which is inherently our birthright. And evil refers to when we are living in the shadow, in who we are not, in our woundedness, in our limitation, in the belief that we are separate from our woundedness in its many forms. Our unripeness is the metaphysical term, to have an unripe consciousness. And so on that last week of Jesus's life, two different processions entered Jerusalem. You see, the Sunday before Passover, many of the individuals, the common people, would go and visit Jerusalem, where the Holy Temple was, in honor, in reflection, in prayer of the Holy Week. And I remind you that Christianity did not come on the scene until 40 years or more after Jesus's death. Jesus was a practicing Jew, although he was from the Essene, the mystical tradition of the Jewish faith, and not the letter of the law. And so thousands of people would ascend and go to Jerusalem to observe the Holy Week. And on that Sunday, which is known in the Christian faith as Palm Sunday, on that Sunday before Jesus was crucified, two distinct processions entered the city of Jerusalem. On the west, we have the Roman imperial army entering the city. They entered the city on horseback with weapons, with armor, with swords and weaponry. And their purpose in that city was not the observance of the Passover holiday or the observance of the beauty and the sacredness of each individual, but it was to control the people via intimidation and violence. If you spoke out against the Roman Empire, you were either injured or killed on the spot. Does that sound familiar? Is that a familiar story that is being played out? And they treated the common people like savages, that they were less than, that they did not have inherent worth. And the Roman Empire was wanting to be in control. More land meant more power. And so obviously they represent the shadow, the dark, the unripe consciousness. And from the other side of Jerusalem, on the left, Jesus enters in a planned act of non-violent protest for the atrocities that were being committed by the Roman imperial army. He entered the East as that nonviolent act of protest. He entered on a donkey in common clothes with a procession of people waving palms. And his purpose was to inspire, to instill hope, to tell the people that they had sacred value and worth, and to speak truth to power. Yes, to speak truth to power. And his message was the message of the power of love. Love of thyself, love of the divine and all of creation, and love of our brothers, sisters, siblings. And you see, Jesus's message was seen as a threat to the Roman Empire. And it was for that reason that he was crucified a week later. And so, can we not see again this cycle, as I said before? Can we not see here modeled in Zelensky and Putin? Now, I'm not trying to vilify anything, but here we can see this being played out in the dichotomy of that conflict of equality and love for all, and only the supremacy and the importance of a few for the power of love versus the love of power. And my friends, over the last few weeks, as at times I have felt overwhelmed as I reflect on the endless cycle of war that seems to be century old. Sometimes I am filled with sadness and anger and frustration and hopelessness. And one day I was like, will we ever wake up? Will we ever wake up? And I know the question is for me to ask, am I waking up? What am I doing to wake up? And it was at that moment, it just so happened I received an email from Carolyn Mace. And so I share what I found in my email that day when I was having that question, will we ever wake up? And so here are the words that she shares with all of us. I received quite a few emails from people asking for guidance on how they, as individuals, should respond to the war exploding in Ukraine. If we were gathered together in a workshop, I would say that before I speak about Russia invading Ukraine, let's talk about what makes a person go to war in the first place. I would say, after all, wars are started by individuals. Putin is a case in point. Hitler, another example. I have studied two subjects in my life, military history and mystical theology. I think of that as studying the shadow and the light side of human nature, our need to destroy and our inherent desire to choose grace and the power of love. I have never met a person who has not waged a personal war against someone. Divorce is often a battlefield, as is a custody fight over children. Inheritance is another battlefield. Any issue that activates a sense of entitlement or injustice can begin with a personal war, such as believing you are overlooked for a raise or a promotion. The ability to forgive someone is, in fact, the choice to stay at war with someone, though that war may be fought through the use of silence. We have to face the fact that so long as we nurture vengeance or entitlement, anger, or pride in ourselves, rather than forgiveness and understanding, we will find ourselves on a personal battlefield time and time again in our lives. Let me be clear. There is nothing easy about forgiveness. However, know this, we are the individual engines of what is created in this world, from our personal lives to the collective events that shape the world. Events do not just happen. Consider the mystical law. All is one. All life breathes together. As difficult as it is to imagine, and it is difficult, our personal actions in some energetic way contribute to the collective energies of the whole of life. We may think we live separate lives, but that is a great illusion. If the pandemic did nothing else, it brought into our awareness how interconnected all of us are. The energy that generates wars arises from the same cosmic mystical truth that we are interconnected. But consider the power inherent in that truth. Every prayer you say makes a difference to the whole, even though we can never see the consequences of a prayer, nor can we see the consequences of a simple smile. And yet we know how good we feel when someone looks kindly upon us. So, how do we respond to this war? By realizing this war, while being fought in Ukraine, involves the whole planetary community. While the Ukrainians lose their lives and their homes, we may have to pay more for gasoline. Consider it perhaps as a donation to support this fight for freedom. And I invite you to pray. Pray without ceasing. Pray for peace. And the best prayer you can do is to make peace everywhere in your own personal life. If you don't think one person can make a difference, think again. Never underestimate the power of your soul and every choice that you make. And my friends, as we enter the holy weeks of Passover and Easter, let us reflect on the warring that is going on in our own personal consciousness, in our own lives. And let us have the courage and the determination and the resiliency and the endurance to heal and to be transformed from the inside out. Even if that little simple warring is about deciding that you're going to hold a gift. So an example here, very simple, right? As I am sharing space with my mother, as you all know, that we have invited her, and she is part of our family, always has been, but now is inhabiting space together with us. And there is all these little things that can come up that sometimes can annoy me. So that is my personal battle for me to look at, for me to glean and to heal that, and to ask myself time and time again, who am I willing to be in this moment? What am I willing to say, and how will I say it? Those little things can make a difference to each one of us. You see that as we are willing to heal the own personal battlefields within our own consciousness, within our own lives, it is then where we can offer ourselves more boldly as the light that we are. And so I would like us to reflect on the metaphysical symbolism of the Holy Week. It is Christian terminology, but I share the metaphysical universal meaning of it all. So we have the crucifixion, the tomb, and resurrection. And many of you are familiar with this, what they mean, and some of you, this may be new. So I share this. The crucifixion represents the endings in our lives and the death. And the tomb is that barren, that empty that period that happens between our endings and new beginnings. It is a necessary period where we are in that meantime, where we're not sure what will unfold or what new life would even look at. But the purpose of this period is for us to take respite, for us to look within and have a deep reflection of what is no longer working, to identify those wars within, to identify and come face to face with the shadow that is within. And it is only then that we can have a transformational new beginning. And when I say transformational, I mean that we have been changed from the inside out. You see, endings can be tough and endings can last a long time. Death can last a long time. And I also want to make sure that when I talk about a transformational new beginning, it can be in this physical form, but a transformational new beginning can also be representative of someone saying, hey, I'm ready to leave this physical world. I've done this. I'm making peace with my soul and I am ready. Because lots of times we view death in our society as a failure or something gone astray. So I want us to have that inclusive in our definition of that. And those endings can last for a long period of time and they can be uncomfortable. And so sometimes we might be tempted to bypass that void or tomb experience. And so we want to just jump in. Let's just make that new beginning happen. So we'll look for ways, what's the new project? What's the new idea? Let me change my physical surroundings. Let me get a new job. Let me jump into a new relationship. And those are great, but if you have not done the inner work, you are bypassing an important stage of transformation in your life. And so the physical circumstances may appear to be different, but that inner work didn't happen. And you may even see those patterns showing up again and again. Or sometimes we can bypass the whole void experience by not looking at our human experience, and we keep it separate from our spirituality. So we practice a spirituality that bypasses the human experience altogether. And we are just saying positive affirmations. They are important, but the uncovering and the emptying, the power, we have the power of elimination for a reason, that which must be purged and emptied in our lives from our consciousness. And so what is the inner work of the tomb or void experience? If you don't like the word tomb because it sounds dark, use the word void or in the meantime. And the purpose of that period in our lives is to identify what is the inner warring that is occurring. Where am I not experiencing harmony in my relationships? Or where am I coming face to face with my shadow, which are when I am living from a belief that is not the truth of me, when I am living from my fear-based self or from old wounds and old stories of I am not enough, I am an embarrassment, I am stupid. And those stories that we take on when we are younger can have such layers and can be something that plays in the background that we can be not aware of. And then it's not only looking at the beliefs, it's also looking at ways in which we show up where we are not in our wholeness, that increase my suffering and perhaps the suffering of others. Perhaps it's when I have a bad day at work and then I come home and I spread my own suffering by not talking to people, giving people the cold shoulder, or just being irritable to everybody who's in my path. And also the work of the inner tomb is also about looking for that forgiveness of self, where we have fallen short or where we feel tired, like, oh my God, I'm still working on that one again and again. and forgiveness of others. And so what are some of the ways that we must be centered, right? Centered in being able to face that warring within our inner and outer world, and also noticing the times where we just say, no, thank you. Now, it doesn't mean we don't take respite and that every day and every moment we are doing that deep dive, but it's also to recognize when we are totally not wanting to go there at all. And so what I would like to also share is what the void is, according to Robert Brummett, author of Finding Yourself in Transition. The void is a rite of passage in which the initiate encounters his, her, their transformative power, but first must face the dark side of himself, herself. The void is a period when we shed the husks of our old self in order to become more of who we truly are. And we know that we will have the cycle of endings, the void, and new beginnings over and over in our lives. Sometimes we experience them as an individual level, and other times we are called ever so deeply as a collective, like the pandemic, like the warring that is going on as a collective, because it means that something powerful is wanting to be shifted in the collective soul of humanity. And so what are some of those practices that can help support you doing this inner work? Always prayer, meditation. Prayer is remembering the truth. It is also the practice of looking at the facts. That's what a denial is. We don't deny the facts in our lives, but we know that, yes, we are having this human experience, but I also know I embody divinity and that resiliency of spirit, and that the circumstances of my life do not determine how I will show up in this world. And so we use prayer and meditation and stillness for that reflection. And just like we plug in our cell phones to get charged up, we charge ourselves up with the consciousness of truth. And we allow every and all feelings to emerge. And it is so important to practice self-compassion. And there's a difference between pampering oneself and self-compassion. Now, a soak in a bathtub can be one or the other, soaking in the tub, and maybe we're checking our text messages or texting someone. Or we can use that soak in the bathtub to connect to ourselves, to embrace all that we have been through, to speak words of love and of passion to ourselves, to speak love and of kindness and say a prayer for another, or be just listening to music in the stillness, honoring our physical body temple, but also connecting with our spirit and our soul. And also spiritual study and community, a group willing to do shadow work. That sounds like woo. It just means that which is hidden, that still runs a belief, a myth about ourselves that we are holding, is still somehow preventing us from living in the fullness of our being. And there is the golden shadow as well. All of those gifts that we possess and those qualities that we possess that are powerful, that we never recognize, but we're willing to step more boldly in. I just completed a quantum living series with a group of 5 women in our community. And I did it because I believe in the work, but also it empowered me to get certified in this process. And this process helps us look at, it's shadow work, but it's like when we are living from the myth of who we are not and really uncovering it. And also knowing that in any moment I have a choice to step in who I am willing to be. And it is a process that involves a 21-day workbook exercise where you are debriefed. And I will be making an announcement about holding that to the greater community because it is powerful work. And so I will be offering that if you are so interested. And there was the power of the group support as well. So my friends, as we enter this Holy Week, as you yourself experience fatigue of the warring that is going on in its many ways in the world, from all the ways that we can be polarized, from all the ways that we are tired of the building not being open, tired of doing Zoom, but there's also the blessing of it all, right? We've learned how to create community in a whole new way, and we will bring that forward. Tired of the depths of being of this constant warring cycle or these own patterns in your own life. So next week, we symbolically represent new life, new beginnings, a transformative process, because with every ending and crucifixion, there is the promise of resurrection if you are willing to do the work. If you are willing to go within from those endings to the in-between time. So I invite you to enter the void experience in one way or another this week. I invite you to just identify one inner war that is waging in your experience. Is it with a family member, a friend? Is it with yourself? Not feeling like you set out to do a goal and you just kind of don't show up for yourself. One self-limiting belief that you are willing to shed, one unhealthy behavior. Maybe you butt into your kid's life, or sometimes you like to gossip, or sometimes you're the perfectionist and you can't let go of endless workaholism. I just ask you to identify one of those. And if you want to do more and to be in that reflection, be in that place of self-compassion and prayer, be in the willingness to shed it using your power of elimination, using the grace of endurance. And so next week, you will have an opportunity, if you so choose, to share that which you are ready to shed. And then you will also have the opportunity to talk about the transformation of new life within you as we celebrate you. And so I offer you my love, my support, and I offer you the blessing of a beautiful inward reflective week. Namaste.